Alumni from back, what year did you graduate? '05. And he now resides in Austin, Texas. He has a private practice in Austin, Texas. And he's doing great over there. And he's going to share some information and some of his experiences as a professional. And we just appreciate him being here on his vacation. So there you go. Thanks, Jared. Appreciate it. It's Dr. Carter, right? Yeah.
I guess so. What kind of time frame? Yeah.
You can go till noon. Is that all right? Can you go till noon?
I don't think I'll
If you
take.
guys really needed to be out of here, that's fine.
I don't think I'll take till noon, but maybe we'll have time for questions at the end. So when I told, first of all, thanks for having me. Thank you for inviting me. When I told Dr. Rott that I'd be in town, he said, hey, can you come say a few things to the S1 class? And I was like, sure, I'd be honored. And I just remember being in your position right now and how intense it was up to that point and how intense the entire fifth semester was. And at that point in my career in PT school, I probably wasn't thinking too much about the fact that in less than a year, I'd be interviewing for my first PT job. And in 1 year from that point where you guys are now, that I'd already be working as a physical therapist. It's kind of hard to focus on those things when it's so intense. So I thought, best thing to probably talk about would be how to maybe prepare in 6th and 7th semester when you have a little more breathing room in your schedule, because it will let up a little bit, to maximize that interview and negotiation process and try to maximize the salary you end up with. I think that might be something good to hear about today. So do you guys get this today in PT? No? Well, you probably wouldn't have time to read it anyways, but when you're, I think it's an APTA thing. Everyone in the APTA gets it, or I don't know actually why I get it, but it says Jobs Outlook, heating up. And it says experts see hot future for PT employment market. So that's exciting. And they go into some details about how things have the hiring is pulled back a little bit right now because they're not sure how the new healthcare legislation is going to affect things in the future, but that long term, with the aging baby boomer population, there's no doubt that we're all going to have a ton of work, which is good. It's really nice to know that in the future you're going to have that kind of job security. But what they don't really get into is, does job security equate to salary security? And I actually am not super optimistic about the average PT salary over time, and here's why. Medicare is kind of the gold standard for third-party payer reimbursement, right? So what that means is that when Medicare makes a cut or does something, private insurances tend to follow suit. Not always exactly, but they tend to do that. So if we look at Medicare and the Social Security system right now, we've already had years where the system has paid out more than it's brought in, right? And the baby boomer population has not even fully exited the workforce. When that happens and a ton of them are starting to not pay in but rather take out, those systems are going to be really strained. And in their current state, they're actually completely unsustainable. So they're going to do whatever they can to make sure that people get back, some kind of social payout taken care of in their old age, and that's great. But what it's going to mean for healthcare providers across the board is that, in general, there's no mathematical way around that. On average, we're probably going to be paid less for the services that we provide. I'm not saying we're going to make, as an individual, less money. I'm not here to discourage you. I'm here to encourage you that there are going to be ways for you to set yourself apart and make sure that you always command the highest possible pay for your services. But as a whole, it's going to be a little rough, and we're going to have to be real creative with things. And what it's going to mean is practice owners, as big and small, is that they're going to have to figure out how to contain costs and how to increase revenues. And it's going to be harder and harder when that reimbursement, those reimbursements get lower and lower, right? So what that means for you guys is that you got to make sure, going into your first interviews, that you're really setting yourself apart, and throughout your career, that you're setting yourself apart from your competition, whether that's someone else going for the same staff PT job, or it's another private practice owner down the road if you decide to go the private practice route. So setting yourself apart, let's talk about that. The fact that you're here at USA, you're already going to be you're way above the curve in terms of clinical skills, clinical reasoning, manual therapy, and professionalism, as if you haven't heard that word enough at this point. I was wondering how many times I could say that in the first week of school. And no, but it's important they do, because now I've been out in the field, and we are known for that. I mean, you should be proud to be part of this school. When you get out there, you're going to be way ahead of the curve. And so on a clinical level, you're already set up for success in that arena of, you know, how can I set myself apart? But where I don't think that any school that I know of really prepares their students or really provides their students is in business and marketing skills, you know. Also negotiation skills. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. But there's just too much stuff to teach about how to fix people to get into how to market a practice when we don't know that everyone's even going to, you know, be their own practice owner. But it's not just about that. It goes for PT staff as well. I'll give you an example. If I were going to hire a new PT, and I had, you know, I kind of narrowed it down to 2 different candidates, and all else was basically equal when it comes to experience, personality, clinical skill, all that kind of stuff. But one person in our interactions says something like, you know, I noticed that your practice is on Facebook, and you're regularly using it to help, you know, promote your brand and do the right things there, but you're not on Google+. I mean, that's kind of a new thing, but, you know, I know about this social media platform where everything you post to Facebook, you just click the button and it'll go to Google+ too. I mean, I could set that up for you pretty quickly, you know. Or say someone says, you know, you've got a great looking website, but I noticed that all your blogs are just about physical therapy and manual therapy. Have you thought about doing like a series of injury-specific posts so that people with ankle sprains in your area, when they're searching for ankle sprain issues, not where can I get good manual therapy, they find your site and they come in as a patient to see you, right? So if someone's saying stuff like that, like my ears are going to perk up, right? And I'm going to most likely not only choose that candidate, but I'm going to be more likely to provide, you know, to pay them more than I would have paid otherwise, right? So it's stuff like that that right now at this semester you don't need to worry about, but becoming an informal student of business and marketing, not just old school marketing techniques, but the new school stuff with internet and all that kind of stuff, in your, you know, the little bit of free time you're going to have, I would really encourage it. You know, there's 1,001 books out there, more than that actually, on that kind of stuff. I actually wrote one last year. My practice, he didn't mention, is actually cash-based, so I don't deal with insurance and Medicare, which is nice. It's wonderful. I spend an hour with every patient, and it's just like luxurious to go to work actually. But the stuff I put on my website, and I actually train physical therapists in how to improve, you know, how to increase their cash-based services or how to convert to that. I've realized over time that the vast majority of it is applicable to any kind of practice, cash-based or not. So it's really good information. That'd be a good place to start. So you can go to drjaredcarter.com and check that out. But don't just limit yourself to physical therapy or just healthcare related, business type sites. You know, see what kind of blogs ring a bell with you, give you really good information in kind of digestible amounts, you know, so you're not reading an entire book maybe, that you can apply, and you can take those skills and that knowledge to those interviews and let your potential employer know that you know about that stuff, that you're not just going to be good with your patients, but you're going to help their practice thrive and grow. That's going to be a huge thing. One more thing I want to mention, and then I'll open it up to any questions if you have any, is don't let your interviews in the 7th semester be the first time you do any kind of salary negotiation or practice. I don't know if many of you have done like negotiation for salary before. I'm guessing most of you haven't. Don't go in there thinking, hey, I'm a USA grad, I'm going to be great with manual therapy and they're going to pay me more for that. I mean, there's so much you can learn and go in prepared, with that knowledge prepared, that can result in literally, you know, making a few $1,000s a year more. And that starting point is huge. If you're going to stay in one job, obviously there's a direct correlation between that starting point and what 5% a year equates to in terms of a raise, right? If you get that. So that starting point is huge, and if you're going to change jobs, then saying, hey, I made this much over here, you know, and using that as a baseline. So as important as it is to make sure you're doing well in school, when you get the time, you need to make sure that you get online, get the right books, or get on the right websites, and equip yourself with negotiation skills and practice with your friends, practice with family. It's super, super important. Don't ignore that and just go into it blind like Dr. Vidia unfortunately did at that deposition. I mean, You don't want to get eaten alive there. And the smallest little things can bring a confidence that results in thousands of dollars over time. So really, become a student, an informal student of business, marketing, negotiations, and that's going to allow you to fully financially capitalize on these amazing clinical skills that you're gathering in school here, because otherwise you might be leaving some money on the table. And if you ever interview with me for a job with me, just forget everything I just said. But anyways, okay, so I just wanted to pass that along, guys, because I know how intense it is. It's hard to focus on those kind of things. So if you have any questions at all, feel free about anything with physical therapy related, business related at all. I had been an employee in a kind of a standard. Yeah. Okay. He said, how did you set up your cash-based business? How did you get into that? So I had been an employee in an insurance-based practice and then in a cash-based practice. So I was able to see the differences and know, the kind of the positives and negatives of both, and how I could kind of take what I learned from those situations. And so, in the beginning it was rough, because when you're asking someone to pay, I charge $120 an hour, and everyone pays day of service out of pocket. I'll see like 5 or 6 patients a day, and I answer my own phone, but I just need because you don't have to deal with so much paperwork and all the insurance and Medicare crap, excuse my language, then, you've got a little bit of kind of admin stuff to do each day, and then the rest of the time is, how hard do you want to market? And so I worked really hard. I got out and networked. I did the right things online, on social media. I made sure I really worked hard to get people to spread the word themselves, online reviews. I mean, the list goes on and on. If my website describes the whole thing, actually. But, you gotta grind it out at first and, hope for the best. I mean, no doubt you've got to be a great clinician, because people aren't going to pay out of pocket for the same thing they could get for $20 a visit down the road. So full-hour sessions with great results is key, but you also have to be marketing and business savvy so you can really get the word out and get enough patients in so you survive and don't have to go work for another insurance-based clinic. Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. That's a good question. He asked, how the Practice Act and the direct access issue in Texas affects me. It affects me significantly, because in a cash-based practice, what I've found is that, I don't even market to physicians. And for that reason, most of my clients come from word of mouth primarily, personal trainers and other wellness professionals, and, other non-physician forms. So, more than half my patients that call me, they call and say, okay, well, in this state, you have to have a referral for us to get started. Do you have one? Sometimes they do, but quite often they don't. Then I have to kind of guide them through the process of going back to their GP or calling their uncle in Maine who's a dentist. That's how ridiculous the law is. You could call your buddy who's a podiatrist in another state. He can fax me something, and then all of a sudden I can see him. It's ridiculous. But anyhow, so we just kind of grind it out, and sometimes I lose business that way because they don't want to go back to their GP, or it's going to be 2 weeks, or they go back to their orthopedist and he convinces them to use his physical therapist who sees 6 patients an hour, So you really got to kind of know how to word things and work it. And, I do have relationships with docs, but in most cases, and it's nothing against me or personal, but they just don't send a lot of patients where people are going to have to pay out of pocket. There are exceptions to that, but in general, you're just going to have to work with it. And in 2013, we'll have another shot at changing that law. If any of you are planning on going to work in Texas, I encourage you to get involved in that fight. I'm on the Government Affairs Committee there, and we're about to gear up for another go-round in the legislature. So, yep. Well, with that, I looked at a number of things. There were massage therapists in the area charging $90 or $100. So I'm not even going to be close to that. Or I don't know, 120 is kind of close, but I certainly wasn't going to be at that level. I'm set up in a fairly affluent area, but actually most of my patients are not what I consider wealthy. It's really about where they place their priorities, how quickly they want to get better, and if you can convince them that you're the person to do that. And so I looked at related services. I also looked at how much does a physical therapy practice billing insurance get reimbursed for their hour, right? So that for an hour, maybe the kind of standard, they might send out a bill to insurance for $250 and they get back about $120, $125. So what I'm getting paid is actually not much different. And if you've got a clinic where you're seeing multiple patients an hour and using techs, I mean, those practice owners are probably making a good bit more than I am. But, I mean, my practice is relaxed, and I really get to spend time with everyone. And for me, it's worth that payoff. So kind of related services and what insurances will pay for that service either way. You guys have got to run, but if any of you have one more question, if there's time, I don't know if there's time. And if any of you don't have to run somewhere else and want to stay, I'm happy to hang out and answer questions. Yep. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.